Welcome back to Not Out of the Park Baseball 25. This is Statline Scouting. Statline Scouting is a series I do a couple times a year where I check in on some of the top performers in minor league baseball and talk about interesting prospects that might be off the radar. If you are looking for a video where I talk about how Jackson Holliday is doing or how James Wood is doing, this is not the video for you. This is an exercise to see if I can identify future major league contributors based only on their stats. And as per usual, the main tool I will be using to identify these talents is the Fangraphs minor league leaderboards with a little help from MLB Pipeline later on. So we'll start here in AAA and work our way down the minor league level. Here are the top qualified hitters in AAA this season by WRC plus, weighted runs created plus, where 100 is average. James Wood, who I just mentioned before, leads the way. He's a mega prospect. We're not going to talk about him. And then you'll see some other names coming up. Oh, well, here's David Dahl, but he's 30. Here's Jonah Bride, but he's 28. Here's Daniel Schneemann, whose last name kind of rhymes with mine. But those guys, they're old for AAA. So one thing we can do is we can set a filter and we can say, hey, how about guys who are 25 or younger? And there we start to see prospects. We see Heston Kjerstad, who's a big draft pick. Miguel Vargas has been up and down the big leagues. We see, the Orioles guys, Jackson Holliday and Kobe Mayo. The guy I want to talk about is Adrian Del Castillo for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He was selected in the 2021 draft by the Diamondbacks, 67th overall out of the University of Miami. This is a left-handed hitting catcher, although based on what I've read and some of these Fangraphs grades, kind of fringy there defensively. Not sure if he would be able to play there at the big league level. They're hoping he will, of course. And one thing that really stands out to me looking at his stats so far this year is this is not his first stint in AAA. He made it to AAA last year after a good stint in AA in the first half of the season. And when he made it to AAA, he did not do well. He had a 72 WRC plus. He hit 2 homers in 37 games. This year, through 49 games, he has 10 homers. Everything is up. His batting average is up 100 points. His on-base is up about 55 points. His slug, his ISO are just way up. He's OPSing over 1,000, and he's being really aggressive. And you can see that by the fact that his strikeout rate is way down, but also his walk rate is way down. He is just trying to make impact, make power, and that has worked for him. He's hit plenty of home runs already, and he is showing off his power swing in AAA, and that's exciting to see because he ranks among one of the best hitters, at least younger hitters, in AAA so far this season. This is the only time I'll use it in this video, but there is StatCast data for AAA players. They have a nice search on Baseball Savant. This is a fairly new feature, but I'm just looking at total barrels at the AAA level this year, and Del Castillo is second. He's had 20 barrels this year. That sandwiches him between Kobe Mayo and Orelvis Martinez. Both those guys are top 100 prospects. Adrian Del Castillo more under the radar. The Diamondbacks system is populated at the top by guys like Jordan Lawler, Tommy Troy, Drew Jones, and Statline Scouting alum Yu Min Lin, but we'll have to scroll down to number 28 to find Mr. Del Castillo. On the pitching side of things in AAA, we're going to talk about a player who was recently traded. More on that later. So here's our AAA leaderboard, and we could sort by all kinds of stats, but if we sort by ERA, we find ERA's maybe not the most indicative thing of success. We're talking about like a 30-inning sample like we're using right now. So the best ERA guy is Michael Mercado, but he's walking 14% of the batters he faces and only striking out 22% of them. That's probably not going to lead to long-term success. So let's sort by FIP instead. That's going to look at the 3 true outcomes. And if we're looking for young pitchers who have a good FIP so far in AAA, the guy that definitely stands out is Joe Rock. Joe Rock has a 3.41 FIP and 3.45 ERA for the Tampa Bay Rays. I believe that's the Durham Bulls, their AAA affiliate, across 47 innings at the age of 23. And Joe Rock is interesting because not only was he picked 68th overall in the 2021 draft, which means he was picked 1 pick after Adrian Del Castillo. That's kind of interesting. He was drafted by the Rockies, so he's on the Rays now, but he was drafted by the Rockies, and he was traded this past offseason for Greg Jones, and what was basically sort of a 40-man roster crunch trade for the Rays. They wanted to get Greg Jones off the 40-man roster. They only had so many 40-man spots, and so they orchestrated this trade with the Rockies. And I think the lesson here is don't trade prospects with the Rays. I think we've seen that time and time again. Do not trade prospects in particular with the Rays. They know how to identify talent. Joe Rock, was pretty good in 2023 with Colorado in their system. He was striking out, 27% of the batters he faced in AA. This year, 24% of the batters faced he struck out in AAA and only a 5% walk rate. That is very good stuff to see from Mr. Joe Rock, a tall lefty, and I've seen video of him, but he's a tall lefty with a low release point, kind of an interesting, almost Chris Sale arm action. And here are the top prospects in the Rays system according to MLB Pipeline. This is headed by Junior Caminero and Carson Williams. We will have to scroll down a bit to number 17 for Joe Rock in what is ultimately a pretty deep system usually. And as you can see, as mentioned in their write-up, the Rays acquired him in March in a straight-up swap for 2019 first-rounder Greg Jones. So recently traded, but doing well in a new organization. The next player that we're going to be looking at is also a pitcher and also in AAA, but we're really going to be honing in on his AA stats first, and that is Andrew Walters in the Cleveland Guardians system. So if we sort by players with at least 20 innings pitched, age 23 younger in AA, one of my favorite stats to look at is strikeout rate minus walk rate, especially across a smaller sample. It's very easy to explain. It does what it says on the tin, and his strikeout rate minus walk rate is absolutely dominant compared to every other young pitcher on this list. And there's a caveat with that because Andrew Walters, as you'll soon find out, is a reliever. This is a reliever prospect. And when the Guardians selected Andrew Walters towards the end of the second round of the draft just last summer, I think they knew they were getting a relief prospect who's going to make an impact in the big leagues sooner rather than later. This was a guy with proximity to the big leagues right away. He has made his pro debut for them this year. In AAA, one outing, not good. Walk, 2 home runs, 4 runs allowed, not a good outing. But if we hone in on the AA stats, 46% strikeout rate, 10% walk rate, 1.35 ERA, 1.75 FIP. That is very impressive, and I think he's very relevant because he could be a high leverage relief option for a team that has been one of the best in the American League to start the season. Looking at MLB Pipeline's rankings of the Cleveland Guardians system, you'll find Andrew Walters at number 24, and I don't envy the people who have to rank, a close to the big leagues relief option versus a, 18-year-old shortstop in A-ball. Like, how do you even quantify the potential impact of those types of players and compare them to one another? But they're right up for Walters. The thing that stands out to me is that it mentions his reliance on the fastball. He used it 84% of the time with the Miami Hurricanes, so another Miami guy. And so it's tough for him. I think he has a great fastball and he is working on the secondaries, but a great fastball is a great jumping off point. Looking at qualified AA hitters now, we find some interesting names at the top of the WRC Plus leaderboard. Davison De Los Santos was interesting because he was actually Rule 5 by Cleveland and then returned back to Arizona. People were a little surprised that Arizona left him uncovered. He has big power, but he is back with Arizona and absolutely tearing it up for them in AA. Carson Williams is a big Rays prospect, a former first-rounder for them. Emmanuel Rodriguez has been covered in this series a while back, honestly. So, of course, the guy I want to talk about is Matthew Lugo of the Boston Red Sox. Matthew Lugo was selected in the second round of the 2019 draft by the Red Sox out of Carlos Beltran Baseball Academy in Puerto Rico. This is especially relevant because Carlos Beltran is Matthew Lugo's uncle, so baseball definitely runs in the family. Matthew Lugo is listed as a shortstop, and he's been a shortstop for a lot of his pro career. Keep in mind, this guy was drafted at 19, so he's been a pro for 5 years now. Last year, moved over to third base, and this year left field, so he's moved down the defensive spectrum. He could no longer be thought of as a middle infielder, maybe more of a corner outfielder, at least based on how the Red Sox are using him now. But man, look at the transformation offensively, because this guy's been kind of inconsistent, but last year in AA, 5 homers in 83 games. This year in AA, 11 homers in 41 games. He's basically quadrupled his home run rate. The strikeouts are down. The walks are up from 84 WRC plus a year ago to 193, and he's still fairly young. He's only just turned 23 a few weeks ago. This is an exciting offensive transformation for Matthew Lugo. And if you hop on the MLB pipeline and look at the Boston Red Sox top 30 prospects, and you scroll, and you scroll, and you scroll, you'll see many names, but you will not see Matthew Lugo. He is listed outside of the top 30 for now. I love scouting for prospects, but I also like scouting for seats, and the best tool for that is going to be SeatGeek. Whenever somebody does this ad, they just try to choose the cheapest team, the cheapest game available, and they say, hey, I can get you $20 off, but if you want to go to the Angels game to see them play a Little League team at 10 in the morning, look, it's only $1, and my code will get you $20 off, so it's basically free or whatever. That's not what I'm going to do. Let's talk about the Red Sox. This is a big market team. People want to go to Fenway, and let's say they want to see the Atlanta Braves on a Tuesday night at 7:10. This is a game that actual people will probably want to go to. Here's what I would do. I would sort by deal score. Deal score just bases the tickets on their location and their price and gives them a score from 1 to 10. This is a 10. Look at this view of Fenway for $64 each. You can look around this simulation. I promise you this guy will sit down. I promise you this guy will sit down, and I promise you this woman, who will be seated to your left, will make some excellent conversation with you about Wilyer Abreu. That is my promise. SeatGeek, use code FOOLISH at checkout for $20 off your tickets. Or don't. I really don't care. I make more money than teachers doing this, and I am not proud of it. We are continuing to move down the minor league ladder. Next up is High A. And in High A, we're going to discuss a couple bats who are probably the most relevant prospects we'll talk about in this video. And chief among those is going to be Carter Jensen, because Carter Jensen is an age 20 catching prospect for the Kansas City Royals. And even looking at his Fangraphs page right here, he was listed in February as a name to know 100 more relevant prospects. So outside of their top 100 list, but maybe in sort of their de facto top 200 among all prospects in baseball. And the thing that's interesting about Carter Jensen, well, there's a couple things. Drafted in the 3rd round, but with a bonus of $1.1 million, which means the Royals had to pay significantly over slot to lure him away from going to college. And in doing so, I think they did a good job, because this is a young catcher who has hit at every level he has played in so far in minor league baseball, despite the fact that he's been younger on average than the competition he's facing off against. And this year so far in High A has been his most impressive outing, and I'm curious to see if they would consider promoting him to Double A sometime soon. That jump from High A to Double A is probably the hardest jump to make in the minors. It's also really hard to go from, rookie ball to full season A ball, and also obviously from Triple A to the majors, but that High A to Double A seems to give people a lot of problems, and Carter Jensen is quite young. He's still only 20, but look at what he's done in High A this year, and even you can compare it to last year. He has 5 home runs in 48 games, but for me, it's the, look at the strikeout rate just coming down 5%. Look at the fact that he's struck out almost as many times as he's walked. Look at the fact that he's hitting, 306 average, 430 on base, 503 slug for a 162 WRC plus. And this is a legit catching prospect. So that is very exciting for the Royals and Carter Jensen. Looking at MLB Pipeline's top prospects in the Royals system, this is not the best system in baseball by any means, but they do have Carter Jensen at 10th. I would actually argue for him to be in the top 5. I'm pretty convinced he would be in their top 5 at a minimum. The write-up for him on Pipeline notes a few things. Double A likely being his home, so I think hopefully promotion is coming soon. The way he's hitting at High A, that'll really challenge him, and we'll really see, how he can do at a higher level in the minor leagues. But they like his incredible eye at the plate, having drawn 175 walks in his first 2 pro seasons. Could be an on-base percentage king. And next up in that group of High A bats is Henry Bolte, who is also a 20-year-old. He's an outfielder in the Oakland Athletics system, drafted by them in the 2nd round of the 2022 draft out of Palo Alto High School, so that must mean he is a Bay Area local. And for a bonus of $2 million, again, significantly over the slot value for that pick, you pay for those high upside high school bats in the hopes of convincing them not to go to college. In this case, it looks like a good decision once again, at least based on his performance in 2024. Hadn't exactly killed it to start his minor league career, but now in High A, he seems to really be getting into his power and speed potential. 8 home runs in 47 games at High A as a 20-year-old. He is 6'3", 195 pounds, so this is a big guy who still has some room to grow maybe into that frame even more. And in a case of what is nominative determinism, the guy with the last name Bolt does enjoy bolting around the base paths and stealing bases. 32 steals last year. This year, 20 steals in 47 games already. So this is a nice power speed outfielder with a 163 WRC plus in High A at the age of 20. The Oakland A's are very much trying to rebuild this minor league system in 2024. It is headed by their first rounder last year, Jacob Wilson, who is absolutely killing it this year. He's also been all right for me in OOTP. Denzel Clark, their number 3 prospect, has been better for me in OOTP. We'll have to go down to number 10 for Henry Bolte, so same ranking as Carter Jensen. But yeah, the write-up likes him a lot. Eye-popping raw power in the case of Bolte. I do have a couple high A pitchers I want to look at as well. The first one is Jaden Hamm, a right-handed pitching prospect, 21 years old for the Detroit Tigers. He was drafted last summer in the draft, 5th rounder, 143rd overall pick out of Middle Tennessee State. What I like about Jaden Hamm, this guy hates allowing runs. This guy absolutely despises allowing runs. He hates allowing walks. He hates allowing home runs. Take a look at his minor league career. In his minor league career, Jaden Hamm has allowed 4 runs. He has allowed 4 runs. He has appeared in 15 games. He's thrown about 50 innings. He has allowed 4 runs. He has allowed 2 home runs. He has allowed 6 walks. And let's get this math right, 63 strikeouts. So pretty outrageous ratios this year for him in high A 35% walk rate and 4% strikeout rate, and they are using him as a starter. He is going out there, he is making starts, he has 10 of them already, he's averaging, between 3 to 4 innings per start. That's pretty normal for a 21-year-old at his level. You're not going to pitch super deep into games, but that is very exciting to me. This guy hates allowing runs, this guy hates allowing walks, this guy hates allowing home runs, but he enjoys a strikeout or 63. Jackson Jobe, Max Clark, and Jace Young are the top prospects in the Tigers system according to Pipeline. If we go down to 18, we will in fact find Jaden Hamm, and his best graded pitch by them is going to be the fastball, which is described as having averaged 20.3 inches of induced vertical break. That is very impressive. That is a very impressive number. And what's interesting is that the write-up says Hamm showed spottier command in college, and given his walk rate as a professional so far, that's clearly something that he has sought to improve. The last high A player I'm going to talk about is also a pitcher, but I'm first going to focus on his stats in A. So this pitcher has earned a promotion. Let's talk about what he did in A. And one thing that I really like is who can miss bats and who can get ground balls. Who's going to get the swing and miss, and when they don't get the swing and miss, who is going to get a ground out. Those are the pitchers I like a lot. That's kind of, like a Brandon Woodruff or a Logan Webb type pitcher. Those guys are really good at that. So I sorted by the top ground ball rate among pitchers in A-ball, and I was also keeping an eye over here on this column, which is their swinging strike rate. And relative to age, one guy that really impressed me was Luis de Leon, a pitching prospect for the Baltimore Orioles, who in A-ball this year had a 63% ground ball rate and a 16% swinging strike rate. That is very impressive. Because another way to describe what Luis de Leon did this year at A-ball is to say 2/3 of his batter versus pitcher matchups ended with him either inducing a ground ball or a strikeout. So over 2/3 of the time that happened. Those are great outcomes for a pitcher generally. And as you can see, running a high ground ball rate is nothing new for him. At every stop he has made in the minor league so far, he has run a ground ball rate over 60%. That is very impressive. Look at some of the run prevention metrics. Look at the xFIP across the board. This guy has been a minor league performer, and because of that, he has earned a promotion to high A, which we also really like. I like promotions. I like when a guy has already gotten a promotion. They were impressed with what he did at A-ball, and in high A, the numbers, not as good. But look, he's only 21 years old, and this is, a 6'3" left-handed pitching prospect, so that's very exciting. I'm excited about Luis de Leon for the Baltimore Orioles. Let's learn just a little bit more about him. The Baltimore Orioles farm system is stacked. You look at these names and they are absolutely stacked, particularly in terms of position players in the upper minors. And the fact that Luis de Leon ranks at 17th is honestly quite impressive given how stacked the system is, but the thing that stands out to me within this write-up is that it's an example of the Baltimore Orioles process and how they've been able to build up their farm system, because it's not always, making a great, awesome number 1 overall draft pick like, Jackson Holliday or Adley Rutschman before him. Look at Luis de Leon. They signed him out of the Dominican Republic for only $30,000. So he was certainly not one of the premier international amateur free agents at the time, but through good process, they were able to identify his talent, and now just a few years later, he is a very relevant pitching prospect for them. Back to our minor league leaderboard, we have another pitcher in A-ball I wanted to talk about, and we're really using the age filter the best we can here. Ages 20 or younger, so these guys are quite young, particularly for the level they are pitching at. These are qualified pitchers based on innings pitched. And if we sort by XFIP, number 1 is Santiago Suarez, who we have highlighted in this before. Jacob Steinmetz stands out to me as a name. This is someone who made a name for himself in the World Baseball Classic, if you'll recall. The guy I want to talk about is a Pittsburgh Pirates arm named Michael Kennedy, who is doing it at age 19. Michael Kennedy is also a left-handed pitching prospect, a 4th rounder for the Pirates back in 2022. And the thing that stands out to me is this guy has been a pretty good performer across the board relative to his age group. In 2023, which represented his pro debut, a pretty good showing at the complex league level. Because this is Pittsburgh, I guess that would have been the Florida complex league. There's also an Arizona complex league, more on that later. But yeah, even at that level, he was striking out 32% of the batters he faced and had an ERA hovering around 2. And he has made that jump into full season A-ball. They actually gave him a little bit of a run there in 2023 as an 18-year-old. This year as a 19-year-old, 8 games started in 40 innings pitched, so that's impressive from a workload perspective. To be averaging 5 innings per start, he must be being efficient, and that's hopeful for him in terms of being, a starter at the big league level. Someday you got to have that efficiency. Of course, a long way to go. He's only 19. He's only an A-ball, but still a 29% strikeout rate and a minuscule 3% walk rate. That is very impressive. So a 3.83 ERA, but a 2.88 xFIP, which is just one of the most impressive totals we've seen for a teenage pitcher in full season A-ball this year. That is very exciting for the Pirates and Michael Kennedy. The Pirate system is headlined, of course, by Paul Skeens, who is still a prospect until he exhausts his rookie eligibility, as well as Termarr Johnson, who I love. I love me some Termarr Johnson. At 14th on this list, according to MLB Pipeline, is where you will find Michael Kennedy. And speaking of the complex league, there is one player currently playing in Arizona who I do want to talk about, and that is a Rockies outfield prospect by the name of Robert, and I don't know how to say this last name. I would say it's either Calaz or Calaz. I'm not really sure where to put that emphasis, so my apologies on the pronunciation. Couldn't quite find a good way to do it. But Robert, will say Calaz, an outfield prospect, 6'2", 202 pounds, as you can imagine with that frame, big power. So just a quick word on, sort of rookie ball in general. There's the Dominican Summer League, and that doesn't start until later. That is not a full season. That'll in fact start on June 3rd, so it hasn't quite started, but it will soon, and we will hit on some players at that level in the next episode of Statline Scouting. But there's also the Complex League, and that is played in the United States, some of it in Arizona, some of it in Florida, and that represents a slightly higher level of competition. The players on average are a bit older, but it's still not quite the level of full season A-ball. So you may play Complex League before you make that jump to full season A-ball eventually. So even at age 18, Robert Calaz is younger than the competition he is facing on average in Arizona for the Colorado Rockies Complex League team. And look at what he's done so far. It's only 18 games. This is a very small sample, but 4 homers and 3 stolen bases. That is exciting. A 26% strikeout rate and a 9% walk rate for someone with the big power and the big frame that he has. That's not too bad either. I know it's a 477 BABIP, but just, at its core, 4 homers, 3 home runs in 18 games for an 18-year-old facing guys who are on average a couple years older than him. That is very impressive, especially considering he had a very impressive showing the previous year in his pro debut in that Dominican Summer League when he had 7 homers and 6 steals in 43 games, a 155 WRC plus at that level, 186 at this level in 2024 so far. And we are looking at the Rockies' top prospects according to MLB Pipeline. Robert Calaz is ranked at number 11, and unlike Luis de Leon, who is sort of a diamond in the rough international free amateur signing for the Orioles, Calaz is someone who the Rockies did in fact have to pony up for. $1.7 million to sign him at the start of the 2023 signing period. To put that into perspective, that is a similar signing bonus to one that you would find for a second rounder in the draft, for example. But he has done very well for them, but he has a lot of room to grow, obviously, until he could be, a candidate for the big leagues. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Statline Scouting. There's an out-of-focus sleepy dog right there. who was really bored by my Statline scouting, but I hope you at home enjoyed it.